me wanna holler, go away. I need more peace and hope and love. Where do I find it in this crazy old world? I need strategies, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Every time I listen, Lauren and David share strategies for living, and it makes me aware. I've got strategies for living, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab.
You know, we need them. Yeah, we need those strategies. Those strategies for living. That's called a microphone, and when you know, when I make it hot, you can't.
I can't
do all
bang
of,
on it.
No,
I was a drummer, so
I know that's I heard. Hey, folks, welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm Dr. David McMillian. She is PLPC psychotherapist Lauren Leon McMillian. You've seen me the last few days go around the house. I've got a book, you know, that I won't turn loose of.
Obsessively,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Flipping through the pages.
Well,
yes.
Our life strategist today, his name is Don Sainte-Johnn. He's got an AKA. We'll talk about that in a moment. But because he's a Southern guy, even though, you know, the book is about his time in San Francisco at KFRC radio. The book is titled San Francisco's Last Top 40 Disc Jockey. But what's intriguing, you've heard me mention my colleague Howard Clark.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah, a few times.
and I don't think I've mentioned Mike Phillips, but Howard Clark and Mike Phillips were instrumental in the success when I went back to KVKI as general manager, because one of the things that I insisted was that they give me the funds to hire Howard to come straighten things out as program director.
Right.
And I can't even tell you how many times, you know, I'd be talking to Howard and about this or that, and he'd say, let me call Mike Phillips. Mm-hmm. And I think I talked to Mike. I never met Mike in person. I think I talked to him a couple of times on the phone. But I owe that man such. I owe him so much. And I owe Howard so much. And in addition to Howard and Mike Phillips, and there are many, many other people mentioned in Don Sainte-Johnn's wonderful book that we're going to talk about today. And believe it or not, there are so many. Don, after I got the book and started reading it, you know, I called Don and I said, you know, there are so many lessons in here.
So we're taking true radio rehab today.
We are doing true radio rehab today with Don Sainte-Johnn, our life strategist. We'll be back to meet him in a moment. Folks, thank you for being with us. And we appreciate our sponsors who make all of this possible. The Robinson Film Center and Azalea Cleaners and Pintail Roofing and Learning RX, we train your brain. The Balanced Life Wellness Center, Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of The Godfather, Alligator Italian Sausage, pretty good Muffies too, Uprising Addiction Center, and Mira Direct Primary Care. We've got a treat for you today. Don Sainte-Johnn, our life strategist, your own Strategies for Living. We'll be right back.
Tune in daily, find the light. Healthy mind and spirits bright. Strategies for living strong. Feel the vibe, it won't go wrong. Body moves and soul aligned. Catch the rhythm, feel the time. Radio rehab every day. Chase those clouds of gray away. Your daily dose of radio rehab. Lift you up when skies seem trapped. Mind and body, spirits free. Living life in harmony.
And welcome into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. Let's welcome into the program Don Sainte-Johnn. He is a writer, a broadcaster, an educator, media consultant whose career spans major markets: San Diego, St. Louis, Sacramento, Chicago, and of course, San Francisco, where he spent 20 years at KFRC. His syndicated work reached listeners nationwide, and his teaching in college probably put lots of folks into the broadcast business, if I had to guess. And Don Sainte-Johnn, a.k.a. Wilbur Johnson, from our parts down here in the South. Welcome to Strategies.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here, and it's been a long time. I have kind of a peculiar to me, peculiar situation. The legal is, of course, Wilbur Johnson, and when I hear someone say that, I know either I owe them their family from way, way back, or it's somebody who's confused me with someone else, because the majority, probably about 95% of my adult life, I've responded to the moniker Don Sainte-Johnn.
Right.
And it's kind of peculiar, because when I was writing the book, I was trying to determine, should I mention my legal name? And thanks to my wife, she says, "Oh, without a doubt, you are definitely going to do that." And since I listen to my wife a lot, I put in the book, and I say at the beginning, if you know me as Wilbur Johnson, well, that covers the introductory chapters, etc.
Exactly.
But if you know me as Don Sainte-Johnn, that picks up in St. Louis and San Diego and ultimately San Francisco. It's really nice to be on the program, and thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be on with you and Lauren, and hopefully we can kind of get through a few things that we talk about in the book.
Absolutely. And you got so many, a lot of people that are probably listening to us right now grew up as I did with Top 40 radio, wherever they might have been. This very station that we're on now was a top 40 giant back in its day. So, there's so many lessons in your book. And folks, the book is San Francisco's Last Top 40 Disc Jockey, or Another One Bites the Dust. I love that. Don Sainte-Johnn. And you can get it at Amazon.com. You can get it at BarnesandNoble.com. And I hope you'll get it. What a ride. What finally, Don? I know it's been a while. You've been, I don't know. Do you ever get out of? Do any of us ever get out that we're in radio? Do we ever get out of it? Probably. Not.
I think there is no getting out of it. I think once you kind of get this, as I heard a friend say at a Billboard convention years ago, once you get this disease, it's with you for life. And there are those, there are those who say, well, I'll never do it again, or it's changing, or it's corporate radio, and they walk away, and then about a year or two or something like that, they circle back to the wagon.
Yeah.
I haven't actually done it specifically. The way I did it, I sort of had a plan, and I wanted to become more the adult in the room, shall we say. Yeah. And I wanted very much to become a consultant, the manager, and idolize Bill Drake and his operations.
Oh, yeah.
And I could learn at major stations and then go back and share it with people in smaller and medium markets. That would be the act that I'd want to cultivate and deal with. Well, I've been able to do that. Mostly what I do is I teach college. And in addition to that, probably about 40% of the time, I consult radio stations. These percentages won't add up, because if I'm doing 60% teaching and 40% radio stations, that means consulting. That means I have no time for nothing else, and that's not true. Yeah. But just for reference purposes, it's about 60-40 teaching and 40 consulting. And I'm having the time of my life. I backed off of the consulting basically to put this book together, and it took a long time to get all the elements and to line up all the ducks in a row, as we like to say.
Well, you did a great job with the book. But what let you know? Hey, it's time for me to sit down and write this book. It's time for me. It's time for San Francisco's last top 40 disc jockey to
tell the story.
Tell the story.
I had talked to some friends about the idea, And when I bump into them, they would always remind me, how's the book coming along? And I got people asking me that so many times, I almost got embarrassed that I'd say, oh, I'm working on it. I'm getting it together. And in reality, I did not have a finalizing date for doing it. And from all the different tapes and things that I've listened to from W. Clement Stones and Les Brown and others, when you set a goal, you need to kind of, in the suggestions that they make, you need to set a time limit, because if you don't, the time is infinity.
Yeah.
We may do it 10 years from now, 15 years, 30 years, whatever, we may not get it done.
Right.
So I set a time limit, and my wife, very instrumental in my life, she says, okay, I'm going to remind you, and we're going to print this up on a big 4x5 card and put it right in front of your desk. And this is your target date. Like you'd have a first draft, hopefully within about a year of that time. And from that, I began to look at that as, here's a goal that I must achieve because I committed to it. And I did.
You know, Don, I think she's a keeper.
Yeah, I think so too, you know. Since 1969, so she's what we would call on the radio back in the day a moldy oldie, but yeah, I think she's a keeper too.
I love it. Oh, so
Yeah.
I don't know what to call, really what you lived through. Radio's golden era, radio's most electric. I don't know what to call. How do you refer when you look at your life, especially the 20 years at KFRC? How do you describe it? How do you describe what you lived through?
I think the term I like to use, and a term that I use in the book, is the top 40 dominant years. And basically that, for me, is 60s, 70s, and in the 80s. And then in the 80s, things began to kind of change, and we had a new name, and top 40 was no longer top 40. The music was the same, but then we came up with a cute name called Contemporary Hit Radio, CHR.
Right.
And with that, some changes occurred. So my focus has been basically the top 40 dominant years. And as you mentioned about Keel, there were a lot of top 40 stations in the little town that I grew up in, Monroeville, Alabama. We could get a station out of Montgomery called WBAM, the Big Band.
Yeah.
And they were top 40, heavily country. Probably about 65% country, but that was the only top 40 we had.
Right.
And then there was another station that we get occasionally. Late at night, we could get filters. If you happen to be a radio junkie, as David, you and I, and Lauren and others are, you tolerate the static, or we would tolerate the static. And I get a filtering of WLS from Chicago, at 89 on the dial. I'd occasionally, depending on where I am in Alabama, I would go to a town called Evergreen, where I had some relatives, and I could get just a smidge bit of WABC in New York. And then when I started doing, is I had friends who would go to those cities, and we had little cheap recorders made by Tandy Company. I think Radio Shack maybe bought them, or it was the same thing. And I'd say, just please record 20 minutes of that and bring it back to me. So they'd bring it back, and that became a cherished piece of gold.
Of course.
That I would take those tapes and play them back, no matter how dated the music was, because sometimes I'd keep it for 3 or 4 years, and the music is now very dated. But the idea is I was listening for the mechanics, the energy from the jocks, the tightness of the jingles, and how cheery they were. They were always upbeat, and they didn't seem to have a problem in the world. And when I was getting my initial training at Los Angeles City College, Professor John McCall explained to me that when you're on the radio, yes, you have your personal problems, but nobody wants to live through your misery.
Yeah.
So keep that stuff to yourself, keep it high energy, tell us what we want to feel, that we're feeling good and you're feeling good, and share some good memories with us and hopefully make it relate to the music. So that's kind of where I got my focus from, and I tried to stay with that.
Yeah. Don was we've got a couple of minutes here before break, but it was, I would guess that writing the book was somewhat cathartic for you. Was it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so. It took me back, as a matter of fact, it took me back to some points that on the truthful side, some were a little frustratingly hurtful. Some of the challenges that I had, because I would go to one program director and he says, "Oh, you're not doing enough of this, or you need to do more." Then I go to another program director trying to get into the door, and they'd say, "You're doing too much of this, do less."
Yeah.
So I'm caught in the middle of people pulling me one direction, saying you're screaming, you're not talking to the people. And on the other side, they're saying you're dull, you're laid back, you're not doing it right. So I had to kind of find my medium ground and say, I'm not going to play to the fringes. I'm going to drive it straight up the middle. And if there are people who can use my talents and put me on and market me accordingly, I'm happy. I'm not going to go to the fringes, because the fringes were making me pull my hairs out. And my wife was saying, you were this way yesterday, and now you're this way. So I basically decided to identify what I wanted to do and prayed every day that somebody would hook into it. And fortunately for me, there's a name I'll throw in. There's a gentleman named Paul Drew, who is a vice president of programming at RKO. And he came in and said, I like what you're doing. Don't change. Don't go left. Don't go right. Stay right up the middle.
Well,
I did that.
Thank goodness you did, and it did work. You're in the Hall of Fame and, San Francisco radio. The book is San Francisco's Last Top 40 Disc Jockey. But don't let the San Francisco fool you. There's lots of stories in here that we can all relate to. Don Sainte-Johnn is our life strategist today here on Strategies for Living. Lots more to share, lots more to learn. Stay with us. More to come.
We all have problems every day. We all need help along the way. We need strategies for living radio.
And welcome back. Welcome back in to Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, San Francisco's last top 40 disc jockey. Another one bites the dust. Don Sainte-Johnn. It's his memoir. And it's maybe I'm sure I'm biased.
Yeah,
but there's okay. A lot. There's so much in here.
Yeah.
Lessons for all of us. And if you are the least bit a radio enthusiast, this is going to be a book that you can't put down. San Francisco's last top 40 disc jockey, Don Sainte-Johnn. You can find the book on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes and Noble, wherever you buy books, and I certainly hope you will. So, you probably went through, I'm guessing here, Don, more than one title idea. How did you settle on San Francisco's last top 40 disc jockey?
Well, you will probably get tired of me saying this, but again, I relate to my partner, quote, my partner in crime, my wife. Mm-hmm. She basically listened and made suggestions, and we worked hand in hand on what the title is going to be. And then ultimately, she came up with the idea that the title should be bold. Mm-hmm. It should get people's attention. And if you just say, the disc jockey on 1110, or the disc jockey on 610, or whatever it is, that is not quite the same as saying the last San Francisco disc. First of all, there's this degree of romanticism about San Francisco itself. Sure. And the fact that I worked for the top station, KFRC, for 20 years, the longest employed RKO, the parent company of KFRC, the longest employed disc jockey in San Francisco at that station. That kind of fit the title. And also, it is kind of metaphorically relevant to the fact that in the early 80s, music radio began to change.
Yes.
We began to have competition that you and I, David, would never have thought of in 1966.
Could not have dreamed of it, yeah.
No, you've got the internet, you've got the CDs, you've got all kinds of different media clamoring to get the same listeners that we used to dominate.
Right.
So I thought the title was a nice play on words to some extent. And then there's the actual truth. that the company that owned KFRC, it decided at about mid 80s, 86 thereabout, that it had to give up music radio, top 40 hits as we've known that, and go to another format.
Right.
And when they gave it up, they went to big band, Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, and that kind of music. So for the young people that we were going for, which was heavily 18 to 24,
Right.
they went somewhere else. We tried, and you know this for a fact, we tried to bribe the listeners by offering them cars and money and
Sure.
trips and everything. Stay with our AM radio station. It's loud. It goes further than FM. Yada, yada, yada. But I think you had a cultural change, and the young people said, I don't want to listen to the stuff that my parents listened to.
Yeah.
I want FM for whatever reasons. And they left AM, and consequently KFRC at that particular time had recently sold its FM because some genius decided that FM is never going to be a mass format.
Yeah.
And we're going to sell that, which I mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
And they wound selling it, and consequently we paid the price for that.
Yeah.
But that's basically the genesis of the title. So there are two reasons for it, as I explained earlier. And again, I do talk about that in the book a little more.
There's so many stories in the book, and I haven't. I've had the book, and I've had the book anytime that I'm walking around. I've been
Yes.
reading the book because I'm
Yes.
trying to cram for this interview today. So you haven't. I haven't let
I
you.
have not been able to touch the
No,
book.
I haven't let her touch it yet, Don. But the book has so many wonderful stories in it, which I'm sure you will get and we will talk about.
Yeah.
But there's so many stories in here. Some of the stories, literally because I could relate so well to them, makes some of the hairs on the back of my neck stand up straight. Are there any stories that you said that made the book that you said, I don't know if I should put this in there or not?
Well, one of the things I was quite concerned about, because I'm a grandfather and I have young people, and I'm very concerned about doing things that are risque or things that may be a bit sexual in nature.
Yeah.
But I did succumb and mention two things, and I was very careful with the wording, and I wanted to create an honest picture of what was happening in 1976, for instance. And when someone welcomed me to the radio station and flashed me, I wanted to be able to have the reader understand the dynamics of what was going on in my little world as I'm trying to keep it together and be on the radio and not say the wrong thing or break the format or insult anybody, and just experience what's going on.
Yeah.
Again, we had the song by Ray Stevens called The Street.
Oh, yeah.
And that sort of talked about some of the cultural exhibitionists that we dealt with at a certain period of time, where a lot of young people thought that maybe one way to express themselves would be to take their clothes off and see if anybody notices me. You weren't noticing me before, but now you are. So basically, I sort of make inferences as to there was an incident with a competing radio station, an FM competing station, and they came on very strong in the ratings. They didn't beat KFRC. That didn't happen. Not until the mid 80s, and when AM had died, basically, as far as music is concerned. But this station had a few great books, and the ratings were up. Again, they were coming at us, and they were so thrilled that a group of them, I think it was about maybe 6 or 7, decided to streak through our studios to say, hey, we're going to beat you guys. And everybody else says, okay, you've got your point, but why do you need to be naked to tell us that you're about to beat KFRC?
Yeah.
So I wrestled, and believe me, my wife said, are you sure you want to put this in? And I said, well, I don't want it to be loaded with things like that, but I would be dishonest if I didn't tell you some of those things actually happened. They weren't promoted. They weren't provoked. This group of people just decided, we want to let you know how we feel. And not only did they do it to KFRC, they did it to another station up the street, KSFO, which was owned by Gene Autry. And it was a so-called middle of the road station that played Sinatra and Trini Lopez and that kind of music. But they figured they wanted to tell as many people as they could, we are gaining on KFRC. That was their success of the day, is to be able to announce that we are gaining on that.
We're gaining ground.
So I did honestly wrestle with that, as I said before, because of my grandkids and other kids who may read the book. But I was very careful not to say things blatantly, and I tried to use as much inference and language that would not be obviously in your face. So if a 5-year-old read it, they wouldn't quite get what is being inferred.
Yeah. I when I was in high school, I ran a CYO program. We did dances and things like that, and hired a disc jockey on, from Kiel, and he'd make a personal appearance and talk about it, and so that promoted our dances and such. And
Right.
I remember one appearance, he couldn't make it, but he said, if you'll come by the station, if you can pick up the box of records, and even though I won't be there, they won't care. They just want the records anyway. So I go to the station, and a guy that's on the air, I threw a rock up at the control room, and he saw me, and I go to the front door to get the records, and there's two just beautiful girls, just gorgeous girls. And they're waiting on him. And he comes down, and without missing a beat, he grabs one and kisses her wildly and passionately. And then he grabs the other one, kisses her, and then he says, you must be David. I got your records. And I took my records, and I'm going back to the car thinking, I know what I'm going to be when I grow up.
You had the inspiration.
Oh, if I hadn't before that, I had then.
Yes.
Was there any in the book, Don? Was there emotionally were any of the chapters tougher to write than others?
Yes, I think the one that comes to mind is probably going to be the one that I spent a few pages on in Yuma. And I was working for the station there, and you could see the call letters, blatant as whatever, KYUM.
Yep.
They had hired me, and they hired me on my demo tape. I put together a tape of what I sound like, and, I said, this is what I can do, and this is the energy I have, and blah, blah, blah. And they talked to me and interviewed me on the phone, and they apparently liked what I did, so much so that they offered me a job.
Yeah.
And then when I got to the market, they decided to pull the job back. They said, no, you would not be happy, and you're probably not exactly what we were looking for. And it was, I think, a surprise to them because, as I said to you earlier, I had grown up in an area that didn't have any R&B or soul or black programming. And mostly what I was emulating was WBAM and those stations that had a heavy country flavoring to some extent. And I think the fact that I was different, black, it didn't bode well with the general manager, and he proceeded to tell me, how unhappy I would be and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And being a young kid fresh out of college, I was not ignorant, and I realized the racial tensions and things that we have and the disparities and whatever. But I had bought into broadcasting is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
And never once did I wrap that bread with a layer of discrimination.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit naive, and when that happened, it made me reset. And in most instances, I think some people that I know probably would have said, that's it, I'm going to go and become an insurance salesperson, or I'm going to do something else. And I just went back and
you hung in.
No, I think
you hung in there.
I cried driving, and which is not something that we males identify with, Lauren. I decided to go back and reload. I am not giving up this career. I love radio. I want to breathe radio. I want to eat radio. I want to die in radio.
Don Sainte-Johnn, San Francisco's last top 40 disc jockey. Get this book. We've got more. Stay with us here on Strategies. Be right back. And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, Don Sainte-Johnn with us today, the author of San Francisco's Last Top 40 Disc Jockey. You can find it at Amazon.com. You can find it at BarnesandNoble.com. I hope you will, if you're at all a radio enthusiast, you're going to love this book. And even if you're not, there's a lot of lessons to be learned in this book.
Speaking of lessons, Don, what did radio teach you about yourself that still guides you today? What is one of those lessons?
I think the most important thing is you've got to have a game plan. You've got to believe in the game plan. And more importantly, you got to follow through on what you say you're going to do. It's easy, and sometimes I've heard, and this is not original thought. I listen to a lot of success motivation speakers, W. Clement Stones, and I read the materials, etc. Sometimes someone will inspire younger people to set goals and write down what you're going to do. And in no way would I ever speak against that. But you got to have an action plan that goes with that. Anybody can write down a set of goals, and you can write down 3,000. If you don't have an action plan on how you're going to get something done and make a concrete effort every day to work. There's something I said to my wife, and my wife is my confidant, so I usually run things past her. I believe that most people, and again, this is not original thought, I'm not claiming it, but I'm definitely endorsing it. I think that most people who are highly successful, they become kind of maniacally crazed about what it is they want to do. They buy into that so much that they become that particular job or that particular, you want to be a nurse. They buy into the nursing so much that they almost talk about it around the clock.
Right.
If you want to hear Jana talk, she wants to talk nursing. You could go in and start talking about rocket science, and she'd find a way to bring up nursing. And I think broadcasting for me is exactly the same thing. And something that I found interesting, Dave and Laura, is, I'm sorry, David and Laura, I find that when you focus on something and you believe that you can do it, it is a targeting of your energies. And I think your brain and everything that you do will help you work to go in that general direction.
Yes.
If you want to do something bad enough and it means that much to you, don't tell me I don't have any money, I'm not tall enough, or I can't do that.
Right.
You throw that out the window. You focus on what it is you want to do. And one of the things I said in the book, I was extremely egotistical about my skills and what I could do.
Yeah.
But now, not to the point that I bothered other people. I would never come up to you and tell you that I'm egotistical and I think I can do that. But if internally I don't tell myself that I think I could nail that interview and that live audition on Keel for the 3 to 6 spot, if I don't believe when I go in there, my emotions are not going to support what I say I believe in.
Yeah.
So the idea is you can fool yourself out front, but subconsciously you've got to believe what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And again, I love the fact that I am never going to bother anybody and brag and tell you. But if I'm talking to myself, that's my own business.
Sure.
And I'm saying the
Yeah.
whole time, I'm going to get this job. I'm going to nail it. It's going to be mine. Why would I tell myself I'm trying out for this job, but I'm probably not going to get it? It's not for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that.
You know,
And if you don't believe you can do it, you probably can't.
Don, you're touching on something as radio guys, you and I can relate to how many times in radio did we hear the phrase theater of the mind, you know?
That's it.
Yep. And I've often thought, and you're touching on it here, the importance, and you're earning your life strategist stripes right now, by the way, because this is what makes the book. And by the way, folks, the book is called San Francisco's Last Top 40 Disc Jockey. Don Sainte-Johnn is the author. What more of us, we need to talk broader, I think, about theater of the mind.
Yes.
How would you describe that to folks listening right now?
I think we all have the capacities to develop whatever we want in our minds at whatever moment of the day. You could be in church. I hope you don't, and you stick with the sermon and you're basically there for another reason. But nonetheless, the mind has a tendency to wander.
Yeah.
And you can create all kinds of things. I remember, and this is a true story, and I'm sure you can identify with this. Growing up in this small town, Monroeville, Alabama, 100 miles from Mobile, 100 miles from Montgomery, right in the center there. I used to listen to the old programs, Gunsmoke. I listened to Have Gun Will Travel, and I listened to a few others. And being an African American, when I would hear them do the program, in my mind, I thought that Matt Dillon and those players looked just like the guy next door.
Yeah.
And not until my neighbors, Mr. Roebuck Lambert, got on television, I think it was 1957, and I got to see, oh, those guys, those are white guys, those are not the people I thought they were. So in my theater of the mind concept, I had already ran through what was relevant for me at that time. Not offending anybody who was not, but because in a segregated society in Monroeville, it was whites over there and blacks over here. So I just assumed that the people that I'm most interested in and listening to on the radio, that must be my guys.
Yeah.
Never the killer. But in my little theater of the mind, I had basically decided that was my reality. And unless somebody proves to me, as they did with television, that it's different, I never would have known.
All right.
So
I got to take a break here in a minute, but I got to ask you a hard question. You ready?
Oh, good. Ready.
You ready? Okay. If there were one song, one song only, I don't know, maybe this isn't so hard for you, that you would pick that would sum up Top 40 radio and what it was and what you lived through, what would that song be?
I mentioned it in the book. It is called All Right Now by a group called Free.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that the television, really good for going back, picking up old themes and throwing them inside of a commercial announcement. They picked this up. I like it because of the energy, and that's what Top 40 was. Top 40 was not laid back, and you almost hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We were foreground, in your face, a little bit of an attitude, maybe a little bit overproduced. And that song, to me, the message in it, that no matter what it is you're doing, it's all right now.
All right now. I love it. San Francisco.
Nothing in the world.
Yeah.
There is tomorrow. You can go back, and if you made a mistake yesterday and that didn't work well, you do what is necessary to correct that mistake. And tomorrow morning, you can start afresh.
There you go.
It's all right.
Don Sainte-Johnn. Find it on Amazon. Find it on barnesandnoble.com. But find it. Don Sainte-Johnn, our life strategist. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, Don Sainte-Johnn today. All right, my complaint, Don, is we need 3-4 more hours with you.
That's true.
An hour is just not enough. Folks, you got to get this book, San Francisco's Last Top 40 Disc Jockey. Find it at Amazon. Find it at barnesandnoble.com. But get this book. It's a good book. Don, what do you want people to take away from our conversation today and from hopefully everybody listening is going to go get a copy of the book. When I called you, you said you're probably the only guy in Louisiana that has my book. Well, hopefully we change that.
Good.
What do you want people to take away from this this conversation and the book?
Basically, what I'm thinking, David, is, and I could sum it up in 5 seconds, but I won't, because I'm a radio person. I will talk forever until you tell me to stop. But basically, you can do whatever you put your mind to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we had been able to look at a 16-year-old kid graduating from Monroeville Union High School in Alabama, who said, I'm going to go to San Francisco and be a Hall of Fame disc jockey, I believe most people would have said, okay, fine, and I'm going to be an astronaut tomorrow too.
Yeah.
But I don't think those people were inside my head for my theater of the mind concept that I'm going to learn what it takes and I'm going to burn the midnight oil. I moved out to Los Angeles, California on my own when I was 16 years old, and I could have gone and just partied all the time.
Yeah,
I did not.
You did
I
what you did. Okay, Don, stop.
Had to do the work.
Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for a Living. We appreciate you being with us. Get this book, San Francisco's Last Top 40 Disc Jockey. We appreciate our sponsors, Robinson Film Center, Azalea Cleaners, Pintail Roofing, Learning RX, We Train Your Brain, the Balanced Life Wellness Center, Fertitas Delicatessen, Uprising Addiction Center, and Mira Direct Primary Care. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Lauren Leon McMillian, for Don Sainte-Johnn, I'm David McMillian. See you next time right here on Strategies for a Living.